The Boeing 737. MAX has been in the spotlight for years, and not for good reasons. Behind the headlines are whistleblowers, safety warnings, and now, tragic turns that have left people asking even more questions. So, what was the reason behind all this chaos? Let's find out. Barnett wasn't an outsider lobbing accusations from the sidelines. He worked for Boeing for over 30 years. He started as a mechanic, climbed his way up, and eventually became a quality manager at Boeing's plant in North Charleston, South Carolina, the site where the 787 Dreamliner was assembled. From his seat, Barnett saw what most passengers never do: the small defects that pile up, the paperwork shortcuts, the times when management told workers to push the plane down the line instead of stopping to fix problems. In 2019, Barnett went public. He said Boeing was leaving metal shavings inside electrical compartments near sensitive wiring.
All been about schedule and hurry up and just get it done, push the planes out, we're behind schedule. We don't have time to worry about issues.
Those shavings could cause short circuits and fires. He also said emergency oxygen systems, the very masks passengers rely on if cabin pressure fails, were faulty. In his view, some might not work at all in an actual emergency. Boeing dismissed him, as big corporations often do with whistleblowers, but regulators checked. And the FAA found Barnett wasn't just stirring trouble, he was right. The metal shavings problem existed. Boeing was told to fix it. Still, Barnett kept saying the real issue wasn't just a handful of defects. It was the culture, a culture where speed beats safety, where quality control was treated like overhead, and where speaking up made you the enemy. Fast forward to March 2024. Barnett was back in Charleston, sitting for depositions in his whistleblower retaliation case against Boeing. Then came the news that shocked everyone following the story. Police found Barnett in his truck, a gunshot wound. The coroner ruled it a suicide. Investigators confirmed that the round came from the gun in his hand. The case was closed. But for his family, it wasn't closure. They filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Boeing, arguing the company's harassment, retaliation, and relentless pressure had contributed to his death. Boeing publicly offered condolences and denied wrongdoing. Officially, Barnett's death is recorded as a suicide, but symbolically, it became a marker, a warning ignored, a voice silenced. And it landed just as Boeing was facing its next nightmare. Now Barnett never worked directly on the 737 MAX, but here's the thing. He believed the same corporate culture poisoned every Boeing program. And the disasters on the MAX prove him right. The first scandal is one the world can't forget. MCAS. That's the software that pushed 2 planes out of the sky. Lion Air Flight 610 in 2018 and Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302 in 2019. Together, 346 people died. Why did MCAS exist? Because Boeing wanted to slap larger, more fuel-efficient engines onto the 737 without redesigning the whole plane. The bigger engines changed how the plane handled. Instead of retraining pilots or redesigning, Boeing installed a software fix that automatically pushed the nose down. But here's the kicker. Boeing hid how powerful MCAS was. They told regulators and airlines it was minor. They downplayed it so airlines wouldn't demand expensive simulator training for pilots. Internal emails later revealed employees mocking regulators, strategizing how to sneak MCAS past stricter scrutiny. The Department of Justice laid it out plainly. Boeing misled regulators. And when those 2 planes crashed, families and investigators were horrified to learn that pilots hadn't even been told MCAS existed. That wasn't an accident. That was a sales strategy. Well, if that was Boeing's first act of disaster, the second came years later. January 5th, 2024, Alaska Airlines Flight 1282, a brand new 737-9 MAX took off from Portland. Minutes into the climb, a deafening bang ripped through the cabin. A door plug panel, essentially a section of fuselage covering an unused exit, blew off the plane at 16,000 feet. The cabin depressurized instantly. Oxygen masks dropped. Freezing air blasted inside. Passengers were screaming. By a miracle in the crew's quick actions, nobody died. When investigators recovered the plug, they made a chilling discovery. The bolts that should have secured it were missing. Not loose, not defective, missing. Think about that. A plane worth over $100 million, assembled in the 21st century, took off with bolts missing from its fuselage. And this wasn't a subtle engineering flaw, it was basic assembly discipline collapsing. The NTSB confirmed it. The FAA grounded jets for inspections, capped Boeing's production rates, and ordered sweeping audits. Regulators don't cripple a company like that unless the evidence is undeniable. This is where Barnett's story and the MAX collide. He didn't warn about MCAS, he didn't warn about door plugs, but he did warn about what happens when Boeing treats non-conforming parts, and documentation errors like minor annoyances instead of red alerts. And in 2024, the FAA's special audit found exactly that. Sloppy process control, poor parts tracking, rushed work, training gaps. Spirit Aerosystems, the supplier that builds fuselages for the MAX, was cited for similar failings. In other words, Barnett's chorus of culture, culture, culture was echoed in black and white by federal audits years later. And Barnett wasn't the only one raising alarms. Take Ed Pearson, for example. He used to be a senior manager on the 737 program, right in the middle of the chaos. Years before the Alaska blowout, he stood in front of Congress and basically begged lawmakers to take a closer look at Boeing's production lines. He said they were rushing planes out the door, ignoring red flags and cutting corners in ways that made the whole system unsafe. After the door plug incident in 2024, Pearson was back on national TV, almost exasperated, saying, "This is exactly what I warned about." You could hear the frustration in his voice, because to him, none of this was a surprise. Then there's Josh Dean. He wasn't in Boeing directly, he worked as a quality auditor at Spirit Aerosystems, the company that actually builds the fuselages for Boeing's planes. His job was to check whether those giant metal bodies of aircraft were being put together properly. And what he found wasn't pretty. He flagged issues with drilling, alignment, and overall workmanship. Stuff that, if it slipped through, could literally compromise the safety of the entire airplane. But here's the part that rattled people. Just weeks after Barnett's death, Dean also died. Not in some dramatic crash or accident. He reportedly developed a sudden, aggressive infection that took his life at only 45 years old. Authorities quickly came out and said there was no connection between his passing and his whistleblowing. But to the public, the timing was unnerving. Two men, both known for speaking out about Boeing and its suppliers, gone within weeks of each other. It felt like more than just bad luck. And when you add it all up, the crashes, the cover-ups, the mounting whistleblowers, it created this dark cloud of distrust. People began asking if these guys on the inside were risking their careers and even their lives to speak out. Just how bad were things behind closed doors at Boeing? For years, Boeing relied on promises, "We'll do better." But by late 2024, even regulators had run out of patience. The FAA capped production rates. The NTSB blasted Boeing's oversight failures.
An accident like this only happens when there are multiple system failures.
The Justice Department went back to court, accusing Boeing of violating its 2021 settlement deal over the MCAS scandal. A judge later rejected Boeing's proposed plea deal, a rare sign that even the courts were fed up. Congress dragged executives and whistleblowers to hearings. Senators read damning internal surveys where Boeing employees admitted they feared retaliation for raising safety issues. In other words, Barnett's story wasn't just personal anymore. It became the blueprint for understanding Boeing's collapse in trust. It's easy to talk about bolts, wiring, and paperwork. But behind those words are human costs. Whistleblowing isolates you. It costs careers, marriages, and peace of mind. Barnett's death, ruled a suicide, is part of that toll. Josh Dean's sudden illness was another blow to the community of insiders who dared to speak. Their families carry the scars. Their warnings now read like prophecies. Air travel is still safe. Pilots, mechanics, and line workers are deeply professional. But the reason Barnett's story won't die is because his warnings line up with official findings. The NTSB says bolts were missing. The FAA says process control failed. The DOJ says Boeing misled regulators. These aren't conspiracy theories. They're facts on the record. And the lesson, airplanes don't fall from the sky because of bad luck. They fall when companies let everyday discipline rot. Barnett saw it happening. He said it. He paid the price. If Barnett could sum it up in one line, it might be this: You don't get disasters from one freak failure. You get them when a company lets little safety habits erode day after day until the holes line up. The 737 MAX has already shown us both sides of that. First, a hidden software system that killed 346 people. Then, missing bolts that nearly ripped apart a plane mid-flight. Different problems, same root cause. That's why John Barnett's story still matters. Not because it feeds rumor or conspiracy, but because it shows what happens when quality is treated as a nuisance, and the people who raise alarms are silenced. And until Boeing proves, over years, not months, that it can rebuild that culture of safety, every passenger, every regulator, and every airline has reason to remember the man who saw it coming. And that's all about the Boeing whistleblowers and the 737 MAX story that just won't go away. The big question is, has Boeing really fixed things, or are we just seeing history repeat itself? Share your thoughts in the comments. Hit like if you found this interesting. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this.